All right, everyone having a good time? Okay, good. Going strong. All right, so my name is Beyang. I'm the CTO of a company called SourceGraph. And today I'm going to talk about building Cody, an context-aware AI coding tool. A little bit of background about our company. So SourceGraph is a developer tools company. It's used by over 1 million developers around the world at a lot of interesting companies to understand large code bases and make sense of what's going on in the code. So some cool logos up there. I think that Databricks company sounds familiar. And one of the things that our enterprise customers like about us is we take privacy and compliance very seriously. So we do not use any of your code as training data for general large language models. Okay, so we built this coding. Oh, someone's taking a photo. Do you want to? I see you, photo taker. All right, awesome. So when we think about applying AI large language models to the domain of code, we find it useful to analogize towards another AI application domain, which is self-driving cars. So similar to how there's a spectrum of levels of self-driving car ability, all the way from no automation to fully self-driving, we think of AI coding assistants as following kind of the same leveling up path. And so going from no AI a couple of years ago to, I think the first generation of AI coding tools that we saw were kind of these like inline autocomplete copilots. So these are tools like Tab9 or GitHub Copilot that sort of do the inline autocomplete. So complete the next line or the next couple lines of code that I'm writing. The way we're thinking, we think the next evolution beyond that is going to be context-aware AI coding assistants. So coding assistants that can take advantage of not just the local context that you're currently writing to do the inline autocompletion, but can actually search across your entire code base. They're actually aware of all the context across all the code that's relevant to what you're working on. And then further beyond that, there's a lot of interesting work around AI agents and things like that, but a lot of that stuff is still experimental. We've run a lot of experiments there, but I would say we're not yet at the point where we'll call that production ready. Another way to tackle this problem is the approach that we're taking to AI editor assistants is really about combining these two kind of classical domains of intelligence. So one is obviously like the AI large language models, the kind of like Norvig school of how do we get to true artificial intelligence. The other one is kind of like the Chomsky camp, where these are kind of like classic static analyzers or compilers, things like that. A lot of people put these two into tension, like either or, but we actually think the correct approach is to combine them because they're very complementary. Okay, so what actually is Cody, the AI coding assistant that we built? Well, it's this AI that can do a variety of things. So it can generate code in the style of your code base, so not generating just generic boilerplate. It can answer high-level questions about your code. It can also fact-check itself. Okay, so let's pop into a demo and see what's actually happening. All right, I'm going to say a prayer to the live demo gods. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting open-source libraries these days, some of which are featured at this conference. So how many people have heard of Llama Index before? A couple of you. How many people have not? Okay, cool. So for those of you who have not, I think one of the first questions I would ask is, what the F is Llama Index? So we're going to ask Cody this question, and what Cody's going to do is it's going to search across this code base for documentation and code snippets that are relevant to answering my question. And so it's going to take a look at a variety of files and give me a pretty detailed overview. So you can actually go through and look at the files that it's reading through. So it reads through some of the documentation, you get the README and also some source files. You can also ask it to generate code. So, show me an example of how to use Llama Index to create a simple PDF chatbot. So PDF chatbots are all the rage. I can ask Cody how to do this. It will go through and read the source code and read the documentation and generate a code snippet that makes use of the patterns that are embedded in this repository. So again, not just kind of like the local inline autocomplete. It does that as well, but sort of like higher level questions about your code base. Since we're running short on time, I'm going to pop into the editor real quick. So there's also a VS Code extension that you can install. You can ask it the same sorts of questions. So I'm actually in the Cody source right now. The Cody source is all public. It's open source. You can go find it. I can ask it, hey, where does, or which file defines the Cody recipe for making a unit test? So we have these things called recipes in Cody that expose common actions that you might want to do with the language model, like generating unit tests or generating documentation. Oh, I got to regenerate. Made something up. All right, let me ask it again. Let's see, generating unit test. All right, it doesn't seem to want to get that file, but that's the file. Then once I'm looking at the file, I can ask it to explain what's going on in this file. And then while I'm doing that, I can also show off kind of like the inline autocomplete feature. So again, this is what we view as kind of like the level 1, but I just want to show it off that we can also do this. You can generate kind of like an entire method using Cody. And again, this is going to use the context in your code base. So it's not just looking at your current file. It's not just looking at your open tabs. It's actually searching across your code base for different examples that can use to complete this method. And so over here on the right, you can actually see it's explaining what's going on in this file. It's explaining how Cody is generating a unit test and fetching stuff from our source graph API and feeding that into the language model as context. So I did have a longer talk for other conferences, but we're limited on time, so not going to get into that. We're actually at that table right there. So if you want to come and stop by afterwards, I'll be there. Come with all your questions.